Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn Wednesdays, presented by Venture Portland. My name is Jacob Falkenberg, and I'm the Communications Director at Venture Portland. And today we're going to be talking about board recruitment and running effective meetings. Two things that are really important when you're trying to build your board and you're trying to get engagement from the businesses in your district. But there's some strategies that you can do to make it a little bit easier. And we're going to talk about that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that slide up there? Great. Okay, so first thing you want to keep in mind when you're looking at recruiting new board members is you want to cast a wide net, right? You want to have diversity on your board, and that diversity can mean representation from different types of businesses in the district. It can mean representation from people who have different skills, different ages, different races. Having a diverse board is really important in making sure that the decisions that you're making and programming that you're creating is representative of the businesses that you're serving. So does your board represent your business district's mix? If you have a lot of restaurants in the district, you should have restaurant owners on your board. Same goes for retailer, service type businesses. Each different business type should have representation on the board. You should also be thinking about getting anchor businesses involved and prioritizing them as you're doing outreach and board recruitment. What are the large and small businesses that maybe have been on the district for a while that are trusted by both the residents and the other business owners, people that might be unofficial leaders of a district? Those are the people that you want to prioritize in approaching to be on the board. And then when you're talking about skill set, that could be anything from, someone who's good with numbers that could potentially be a treasurer, to someone who, has experience updating websites or social media that can kind of take care of that piece of the organization, or someone who enjoys organizing events. People with previous experience in these fields are going to really make it easier for you all to do what you need to do and make the most out of everybody's time. A representative board leads to better programming and people that want to stay on the board, and people that want to move up maybe into more intense leadership roles. So the main thing to kind of keep in mind, and if you don't take anything else away from today, it's this, is that you've got to develop relationships with individuals before you're making that ask to get them onto the board. So if you don't have prior experience or don't have a prior relationship with someone, you should be kind of working on inviting them to some of the events that you might be doing, if you're doing mixers and other small events, just to attend, or maybe hosting an event in their space, or asking to host an event in their space. So not asking for any sort of commitment, just helping them to understand what your organization does, who you are, how they fit into the mix. And then once they're kind of comfortable in what you're doing, a face-to-face ask is usually the best way to do it. And it should be by a trusted person. So when you're thinking about board recruitment, think about who pairs well with others. So it could be, people on your board already in a specific industry. They might have a better time talking with other people in that industry. So if you have a restaurant owner on your board, having them approach other restaurant owners in the district to see if they might be interested in serving on the board. Same goes with retail, service businesses, that sort of thing. Also, a trusted person could be someone that's on their block. So it doesn't necessarily have to be within the same industry, but it could be someone who they see on a regular basis because they're in close proximity to them. Things that don't work when you're recruiting board members are bulk emails. Really, that face-to-face ask is the most effective, because it allows you to kind of tell them how their skills would benefit the district. When you're making an ask, you want to personalize it for the individual. So, if you're approaching someone and you think that, they do really great events at their business, and that might be a great asset to have as a board member. So you could approach them and say, "Hey, I've been to this event at your business. I really enjoyed it. We've got this organization that's supporting the businesses in the district, and we're looking for someone who has experience organizing events to do larger events for the entire district. And we'd love to have you as a board member." So helping to understand, helping them to understand where they fit into the whole puzzle. It's a people business. They want to learn about you, and you'll want to learn about them. So, asking questions. I think it's really important to have conversations with business owners about what do they specifically want to get out of being a board member. What would they find beneficial that a business association could offer to them? So, having these conversations and gathering this information before making asks of people's time is really going to be the most effective way to get them engaged. That way, you can kind of personalize the ask based on what their particular interests are. Are they interested in learning about how a nonprofit operates? Are they interested in learning more about finances, or more about social media and that sort of thing? And then you can find a place for them to fit within your organization. Don't add board members out of desperation, though. That's the main thing. You're not just looking for a warm body. You want people who can lead, motivate, and recruit talented people who are personable, who are enjoyable to be around. A lot of the times, if you're taking the person who's most willing, they're not necessarily the person that other people want to be around. So having a certain person who might be a little more difficult personality on the board could actually lead to other folks not joining the board. You want someone who's going to work for the entire district's benefit and who are nimble enough to lead the district through future changes. So as we saw with COVID, you really have to be nimble as an organization to adapt to the changing needs of the businesses as they're going through whatever might be happening, either in the city or a larger international scale. You want to make sure that your leadership matches the future of the district. So districts are always changing, and you want to build a board that embraces that change. And that kind of goes back to what Dan was saying about having the same 5 people is not always the best way to go about it, right? It's great to have that institutional knowledge, but as the district is changing, you kind of get stuck in doing the same things over and over again that might not benefit some of the new businesses that have come into the district, or some of the changes that have happened in the district. So people with fresh ideas, fresh energy, it's always good to get them on, but also keep the folks that have been around for a while engaged as well, because you want to keep that institutional knowledge available. You want to make leadership easy for them. So lower the barriers to getting involved. And that could be creating opportunities as a pathway to leadership. Does your district have a middle ground between members who participate occasionally and board members who invest a lot of time? And a lot of the times that works by having committees for specific events or projects that allow people to get involved, but for maybe a smaller commitment, smaller amount of time. And then they can kind of start to get a feel for the organization and decide if they want to invest more time moving forward. So these are short-term opportunities that build their experience, that build their confidence, that allow you to create a leadership pipeline to move them up when they're ready. But you also want to designate a role for potential leaders quickly. There are certain people that are going to be obviously the ones that you want to be in those leadership roles, those officer roles. And you want to make sure that when they're ready, you're making that ask to move them up. You're creating a space for them so they don't move on to other opportunities. So this is kind of the leadership pipeline pyramid that kind of is a visualization of what I was just talking about. At the top of your district, you've got the president, who is probably donating the most of their time and making the most decisions. And then below that, you've got your board officers, your vice president, your treasurer, your secretary. And those are the ones that are most likely and probably best fit to move up to that presidential role when your president decides to step down. So having a vice president in place that's able to shadow the president, so they're able to move up when that president steps down and there's no gap in leadership, that's the most ideal thing. The same goes for the next level down, your board members. Those are the people that are most best fit to move up into an officer role when an officer role opens up. Then below that, you've got your non-board committee members and project coordinators, people that are maybe once a year working on a specific project. They're still familiar with the organization. So those are the best folks for you to ask to fill those board seats. And then below that, you've got your task volunteers. Those are people that might help out by, helping people with name tags or something at a mixer, or doing small jobs that not necessarily require a long-term commitment, but they're still they want to get involved. They just don't have a lot of time. And this is something we see a lot with business owners, is a lot of the times they don't have a lot of time. So those task volunteers are your future committee members. Below that, you've got your members who participate in district activities. So those are just the businesses that want to be a part of something. If you're doing a street fair, they might have a booth at the street fair. Or if you're doing, a sidewalk sale, they want to participate, or a shopping passport, that sort of thing. They're not necessarily volunteering to execute the event. They are the ones that are just a part of it and making it happen. And then below that, you've got your prospects, which are your dues paying members, your non-members in the district, and then district partners, which could be a neighborhood association or other nonprofit organization that you work with in tandem on specific projects throughout the year. So with board recruitment, you want to pass the baton, don't drop it. So that's that leadership pipeline, always having somebody in the mix that could move up to the next level. So you want to help them learn and feel comfortable in their roles, be a coach and a mentor and advisor. A great thing to do with new board members or people looking to get involved in the organization is to pair them with the veterans. So the veteran board members can kind of share their experience, share that institutional knowledge, and kind of make it a little less scary for folks that don't have a ton of experience being on a board, running a nonprofit organization, that sort of thing. Help board members understand their district and how their role and how they can be effective. So what are the needs of the district? How does the business association fulfill those needs? And where do they fit in based on their skill set? Help them understand the organization's history, but focus on the future. So that's, again, with those veterans, they can kind of provide a great framework of what has been done. But with the new energy, they're the ones that are going to have the new ideas and the new the fresh energy to start and try something different. A big part about board recruitment and making people feel comfortable in their roles is training. So you should always do every year a board orientation for the whole group. People that have been on the board for a while, it's always good for them to get a refresher, even though they probably know a lot of this stuff. But it's great to go over the following every year so people are really comfortable in their roles. So that goes for the legal responsibilities of a board member and an officer, what the expectations are of a board member, and what your business association does and how it's done. So we've got some kind of board member and officer job descriptions that are really great for this particular piece. And you can kind of customize them based on your district. So I'll be sending out an email afterwards that includes those templates that you can kind of use to put together your board orientation packet. There's a couple other things that should be in there too that we'll talk about in the next slide. So don't assume that other board experience translates. All boards are a little bit different, and a board for a business association is especially unique. So make sure that they get a lot of this information up front so they're confident moving forward in their role. So what you should kind of also include in this board orientation packet is make sure you've got directors and officers insurance. That makes sure that if someone were to ever sue the organization, the business officers and the board members and their businesses are protected. So that just provides peace of mind. It's a little expensive for the year. I think somewhere in the 1,000 to $1,500 range per year, but it really helps people feel like they're not risking anything by being involved. You also want to have each board member sign policies. So we've got some policy templates that we can share with you as well. This includes anti-harassment, whistleblower, document retention, things like that, that everyone should be aware of as part of their role. Also, ground rules. This is ground rules for meetings. And this is really helpful because it kind of helps to set expectations and gives you something to point to at a meeting if someone is being disruptive. And it just helps everybody get on the same page of what's to be expected of them during meetings. You should also delegate board members who are responsible for connecting with future prospects. So is there someone on your board who's responsible for developing relationships with people that are in the district, maybe doing business visits to have conversations with business owners about what are their concerns and what would they like to get out of something about serving on a board, that sort of thing. This could even be a committee of people who are kind of breaking up the responsibility because it is pretty time intensive to develop relationships. You want to also make sure to set term limits and plan for transitions. So this ensures that you're not having the same people kind of taking up those board seats for extended periods of time. It lets you kind of cycle in new ideas and new talent. And you can do that by setting those term limits in your bylaws. So I think Venture Portland, for our board, we have a 2-year term. So when somebody comes on the board, they can serve for 2 years. And then I think they can serve 2 or 3 terms consecutively before they have to cycle off the board for a year and have somebody else come on. And that just kind of helps to keep things moving and get some new folks in, new ideas in the door. Also, don't forget to celebrate. This is, taking up their free time. So it should be fun, and you should help people to feel appreciated through volunteer recognition. So that could include something as simple as just giving a shout out to somebody at a meeting for something they had done above and beyond, or throwing a party after a big event or after something that you're really proud of. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to run an effective meeting. Because once you've got a group of people, you want to make the most of their time. You want to make sure they're comfortable. You want to make sure they're feeling like they're contributing and being productive with the little time that they're able to offer you. So the most effective way to run a meeting is by creating an agenda. Every meeting you call should have an agenda, and that's created with the president. So the president is the one who sets the agenda. But as a board member, if you're not the president, you can work with the president to help design the meeting. If there's specific things that you feel like should be discussed at the next meeting, bringing that to the president's attention so it gets included in the agenda. Each agenda item should have a start and an end time. That will kind of help you manage the time, keep from running over on specific items. So make sure that on the agenda, you've got an allotted amount of time for each. And then identify what decisions need to be made and versus what's more informational. And it's usually best to put the items that require approval at the top of the agenda. That way you don't run out of time before having to make a decision on something that is more time sensitive. So frequent topics in an agenda include approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. It could be financial statements for what's the current financial state of the organization. Discussion around future events and marketing or other projects that you want to focus on in the coming months. And then new board members. So if somebody wants to kind of jump onto the board, that does require approval of the existing board members. So making space for that on the agenda as well. You also want to get notice So reminders are standard practice. So when you're sending out emails, make sure you're sending out emails a week or two in advance to remind people of the next meeting date and time. And it's usually best to include the agenda in these emails, draft minutes, other reports that they can review ahead of time so they can kind of prepare questions and comments for the meeting, giving people a heads up by creating kind of a meeting packet before each meeting. It's also super helpful to create a calendar of meeting times to help ensure attendance. So once your board is voted in after your annual meeting, sending out a calendar that kind of lets everybody know what are the meeting dates and times for the next year, so they can put that on their calendar and they're not, finding out last minute about meetings and unable to attend because there's a conflict. You also want to be kind of gauging what are the best times that work for everybody. Different business types are going to have different preferences for when they can attend a meeting. So sending out a survey to the board members at the very beginning of the year is a great way to figure out what times are going to work best for everybody, whether that's a morning, lunchtime, evening, what day of the week. Should it be Zoom or should it be in person? So trying to get that stuff figured out, what works best for everybody is going to make things really great for you, because you do need quorum to make approval. And that goes with soliciting RSVPs. If there's no quorum, there's no point in meeting. So as you're sending out emails, make sure you're requesting people tell you if they can or cannot attend. And this is going to be in your bylaws, what constitutes as quorum, how many absences someone can have before they are considered of resigned of their board position, that sort of thing. During the meeting, you want to have your materials available as well, so you can kind of refer to them. That's your agenda, your minutes from the previous meeting, your financial reports. Your bylaws are also really helpful to have in case you need to check and see about a specific item, what constitutes as quorum, that sort of thing. Also take notes on meeting materials to reference while writing the minutes. So your secretary will be taking minutes during the meeting, and during that time, they should be making connections between what they're writing in the minutes and the meeting materials that people are looking at during the meeting. So during the meeting, we always recommend starting the meeting with an icebreaker. So that is really just a way for people to kind of get to know each other, very informal. Usually it's not related to the business at hand. So, it could be a different topic every meeting, people sharing, what are your upcoming summer vacation plans, or, what's your favorite food and things like that. Just to kind of give a human element to it. And that helps people relax. It helps people get to know each other. And just makes it a little more enjoyable for folks before diving into some of the more nitty-gritty things that maybe aren't as fun. You'll also want to help your president stay on track and implement good governance during the meeting. So, if you're kind of starting to go over time for a specific agenda item, or maybe chiming in to kind of tell the president that things need to move on, that sort of thing. And reminding when things need to be voted on, that sort of thing. And as I said, keep your bylaws handy, because different decisions may require different vote thresholds. So whether it's a simple majority, 2/3, you want to make sure that you're kind of following your bylaws to a T during the meeting. And it can be difficult to remember all the different things that the bylaws kind of dictate. So again, stick to the agenda, keep track of motions, seconds, and votes. So the individual people who are making motions and seconds, they need to be listed in the minutes. You want to be respectful of volunteers' time. So if the meeting is supposed to be an hour, try and have a hard stop time at the end of that hour, just to keep from going over and inconveniencing people if they have other things going on. But also provide opportunities for people in the meeting to share information about their business, right? If they've got a big sale coming up or an anniversary, or if they've been struggling with a specific issue, um, leave some time in the agenda for them to talk about this stuff. It's not just about the business association, but this is a great opportunity for the board to hear about what's going on with the businesses in the district. And that provides some benefit for them too. Meetings should be fun, not a chore. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how to manage tough behaviors, because if you've got people who mean well, but can oftentimes, they can have behaviors that might turn other people away or frustrate other people and result in limited attendance or limited productivity during the meeting. So there's a couple of different types of folks and specific strategies for effectively managing that. So you've got the naysayer. So this is someone who is constantly criticizing the organization or complaining about things that you're doing, but not actually providing any sort of positive or useful feedback. So you want to repeat the concerns to them so they know they've been heard, but also seek alternative viewpoints. So if they're having an issue with something, ask the other people in the room, have they had similar issues? Or maybe they actually have a positive view of the thing that the naysayer has a negative view of. With the rambler, you've all heard of the rambler. It's someone who just won't stop talking. And for the sake of time, the president needs to interrupt that person and tell them to get to the point. That's why there are time limits on your agenda items, but you can also establish time limits on comments, and that can be in kind of your meeting rules that you establish. You could also use a round robin format where everybody gets to chime in rather than have an individual kind of take over the entire meeting. The tangents, you want to interrupt tangents, similar to the rambler. Use the parking lot, which is a tool where you basically acknowledge what the person is saying. You say it's not on the agenda, but we'll put it in the parking lot so we can get to it later. And if it's important, you can ask the group if they want to shift the agenda to discuss if there's not time at the end. You've also got the attacker. So this is someone who is disrespectful to others. And this should also be in your ground rules about respectful disagreement. You want to interrupt rudeness and personal attacks immediately. So your ground rules are a great thing to point to if someone is talking out of turn or out of line. You can refer to the ground rules so it doesn't feel like a personal attack on them. You're actually just following the rules that everyone had agreed upon previously. You've got the interrupter, which is similar to the attacker, someone who is being disrespectful by interrupting. And this can also be in your ground rules. Interrupt the interrupter and keep a list of who has the floor and in what order. So the president or whoever's running the meeting should kind of dictate who gets to speak next and make sure that people aren't talking out of turn. And then finally, you've got the mouse. So that is the person who, wants to be there, wants to contribute, but might be a little shy, especially if they don't know everybody super well. So for that, while you're running the meeting, you've got to seek their opinions. You've got to reach out to them directly and ask them if they have anything that they want to share, any thoughts on the matter that's being presented. Sometimes people just need to be called out and encouraged to participate. And this could also be the round robin format. Everybody has a chance to share something, and then that way it doesn't feel like there's a lot of pressure for someone to say something specific about what is being discussed. Okay, so I was just talking for a long time. And I know it's a lot of information, so I'm going to be providing you all with some resources and materials in a follow-up email. But want to just see if anybody has any immediate questions or things they want to share about anything that was discussed.
Yeah, I have a quick question about timing of meetings. So a challenge is always, especially on the business side, the resident side, you're like, let's do it after hours, and that's usually just how it's done. But on the business side, after hours means that's their family time. And then some open at 10, some open earlier than that. So is there a recommendation? Because I know you can, as you said, send who's currently on the board the right time so you have a quorum. But if it's hard to recruit when people are saying, I can't do that time or that doesn't work for me. So do you have any recommendations or people know of things that have times that have worked well?
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates based on your business type, right? So people who are working late hours, like bars and restaurants and that sort of thing, they're probably going to be less likely to want to get up early for an early meeting. But the same, the difference is other types of businesses, their prime time might be an evening, right? So it's really a matter of who's on the board and what their specific industry allows them to do. You can also do like a hybrid meeting too, where people can't be there in person, offering a Zoom option as well. But I think for most businesses that are working, that 9 to 5 kind of schedule or 10 to 6 or whatever it might be, early morning is usually the most effective to get everybody in there. Just because, yeah, once the day gets started, people tend to get really busy, and usually at the end of the day, people are tired. So kind of getting their buy-in at the beginning of the day, I found works well. But I wonder if Dan or Carrie has any thoughts on that.
No, I mean, I think it's a great question. And, I think you have to try, you basically have to talk to people and then go with whatever the majority is and then figure out, does it make sense to alternate times? Because what you're trying to do is be reliable and repeatable for your members, but then try to accommodate as best as possible. We are only a business district. A couple of the other associations are more neighborhood. You're right, the neighborhood tends to meet in the evenings. The business district, we currently meet at 9:30 and not everyone can attend. And so we're looking at, we're thinking about doing a survey just to kind of get another sanity check. Is there a time where we could get enough of a population? We do publish our minutes to all members. We try to delineate between members and non-members. And so, because we're trying to, create value, what we do for members. And we know that even people that aren't attending are reading the minutes when we go around and do face-to-face to try to drum up membership and things like that. They tell us. But yeah, it's a constant quest.
Definitely.
We have the same problem with us. Sorry, my computer crashed, so I had to join with my iPhone. So sorry for the video situation, but yeah, we have that struggle because none of my fellow board members want to meet in the daytime. So we're always meeting at like 6:30 or later, which is really hard. I think that's part of the reason we struggle. I'm wondering, is it common for people to have like every other month? Like I know that my parent teacher group at my kids' school, they half the time they meet in the evenings and half the time they meet during the business day. I'm wondering, is that common in business district boards or is that too confusing for people?
I don't think we see that too often. I think consistency is probably best just because if you've got people that can come 1 month, but then they have to skip the next month, it's really hard to be productive when, you're not having the same people in the room every month. So that's why I think, being consistent is probably best. But you could definitely float it to your board members to see if it's something that might work for them. Just as long as they can be there. Just because missing a month every other month, I think, is just going to slow things down to the point where it's just going to make it really hard to move forward with projects.
It's more not so much missing a month, but making it easier that month for the person to attend versus.
Yeah, people are flexible for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's good to give them the option. It comes down to sometimes people either they are available, they aren't, rather than just it's a preference, right? Like, this is a little more convenient for me to do it at this time versus I could make it work, I'd rather not. So if they can make it work and just to make it more equal for everybody, where it's like, okay, I'm going to be inconvenienced this month because I know next month is going to be better for me. So you could try it out and see how it affects your attendance. If people are able to do it each month with an alternating schedule, then I think that could totally work. There's nothing in the bylaws that says you can't do that. But I think creating a board, once you do figure it out, creating a board meeting calendar that kind of shows the entire year's meetings, I think that's really helpful too, because sometimes it's just a matter of giving people notice, a couple of months in advance, so they can put it on their calendar and they know to keep their schedule free for that time for the following month or whatever it might be. Any other questions or thoughts that you wanted to share? I'm sorry, we've got a small group here today.
I got another one to throw out there, but if
Yeah.
Dan and Carrie want to go, I can.
Go for it.
Okay. Especially on the business side, residential, again, I'm comparing because it's easier. You live in the district, you are in the district. What do boundaries look like when I have a hard retail business or an office business in a district? Okay, that makes sense. What about people who are like, well, I do business in the district. Can I be part of it? Be part of the program? A call out here is also, I live in the district, but my business isn't directly in the district, but I want to be involved. There's advantage, disadvantage. I mean, I know the group here, we all struggle with adding people, so we don't really want to say no, but what are recommendations for, and I'll give an example, someone who like sells a lot of insurance that go to condo associations here in the Pearl District. Those people tend not to live here. They don't actually have a business here, but they do a lot of business here. So is that someone that you're like, well, it seems like they're really only joining to make money, to make the connections and do that? The other aspect is like, and I know, I don't think Dan is, Carrie, sorry if you are, but like residential real estate agents. Like, to me, I'm a commercial agent. I've lived with residential people my whole life, but the challenge is they always seem to be selling. So when they join a board, every time, if there's a business but they live in the neighborhood, there's that weird perspective of, well, this is supposed to be business people talking to each other, not getting in that residential side. So where do you come about with like building boundaries for putting a board together for a business district that is encased in a smaller area?
Well, our bylaws clearly state that you have to be like a business in the district. So your address has to be within the district to be a member and to be a board member. I don't think that would get you away from like the real estate people who just happen to live there and are a real estate agent. That would mean that their home is their business. We have a lot of like home businesses within our district because we're really residential.
Yeah.
But we haven't had them show a lot of interest, honestly. But yeah, we actually had to make like I don't know if we amended our bylaws so much as like made sure that it worked, because People's Co-op is like 2 streets outside of our district, but they don't have a district. And obviously, what a great business to be within our district. So we let them join. We made sure that it worked with our bylaws. But like, yeah, I mean, as far as the insurance agent who doesn't live there, I mean, they would not, with our bylaws, they would not be able to join. I don't know if you make
we're
sense.
we're a little different in that. I mean, I'm a good example. So I'm a business broker that works all over, you know, the greater Portland area, but so I don't live in Hillsdale and I don't have a brick and mortar office in Hillsdale, but I joined the business association because of what I do serves businesses. And then after a couple of years, you know, they invited me to join the board and then appointed me president. So I think now what I do though is I don't sell as a member of the association. So I build relationships, and then if somebody's interested, you know, then we meet separately. So I don't make my business part of the association's business. So that's kind of how we manage that. Um, and then and then in terms of the business association versus residential, I think Carrie's point about bylaws has to be really clear because you know, we don't have just pure residents joining as part of the business association. You know, you know, so we don't do that. You know, you have to have a business that resides in or serves the area. Um, Kind of the community associations or neighborhood associations typically line up on, you know, that membership. And so everyone usually has some kind of a business tied to them. The point that Carrie made about boundaries is a challenging one because there are a lot of kind of orphan businesses that are on the fringes of different associations. We do welcome, like for instance, there's a lot of overlap between Multnomah Village and Hillsdale, which is they're very close to each other. And so we welcome kind of cross-pollinating. I'm a member of Multnomah Village. Um, and so that's kind of how we work it. Yeah.
It definitely, yeah, depends on the bylaws for sure. I know a lot of districts will allow members from outside their boundaries to be, or allow businesses from outside their boundaries to be members, but maybe not eligible to serve on the board. Or, you know, as long, I think, as it's clear that the activities that you're going to be doing are within those boundaries, and the people who are outside of those boundaries might not get all the benefits because they're outside of those boundaries. If they're okay with that and they understand that, then I think it's fine to have them as members. But yeah, it's a conversation to have with the board. Really is to see, you know, could there be a potential issue with having someone outside the district be in a leadership position? Is that best for the district? Are we desperate for people to the extent where we need that, or maybe we just want them as a member, so we can still, you know, collect their membership dues and still build our membership and create, you know, have them as maybe a volunteer for other projects. It's really customizable. You can kind of choose to however you're comfortable. Good question though, Chase. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's just it's always tough because if you have great people like Dan that are respecting that boundary, that is awesome. But I don't really run into this with NWCC because we're a member-based thing, but I see and I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but PDNA, they're struggling a little bit right now. And I think there is a conflict. There seems to be conflicts of interests that are happening, but there's nothing egregious. It's nothing ridiculous, but it's just something that I see could easily pop up.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think that those are typically board challenges, and so that's where leadership has to engage and have those discussions because there's always going to be somebody that's trying to, like, you know, horn their way in and influence, especially people that, you know, think they have a lot of money and it counts and those.
right. Yeah, you got to strike a balance. You know, there should be a benefit to being on the board or being a part of the organization because, right, that's as a business owner, that's why you're there, right? You want to, you know, help to build your business, help to build the community. So, you know, creating opportunities for people to do that, networking, mixers, and that sort of thing, where, you know, there's a specific time and a place for you to talk about your business and try to, you know, build clientele and that sort of thing. Great. Well, it looks like we are just about at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to adjourn us for the day, but yeah, I'll follow up tomorrow with an email with some of the resources we discussed and a recording if you want to pass it along to anybody who couldn't access it today. And feel free to also reach out with any other questions as they come up, and I can kind of field those and provide additional resources that might be helpful.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jacob.
so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
all
Jacob.
for being
Appreciate
here.
it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good to meet you
Bye.
guys. Take care.